Hello and welcome to FPL Have a Beer, where I usually invite you to have a beer with me. Today, Pepsi Max. We're recording this at 2 in the afternoon while I talk about FPL. At the time of recording, the channel is on about 940 subscribers, and it would be amazing to get the channel up to 1,000 subscribers before the season starts. So if you could help me get there by smashing, that's what I always say, Gianni, isn't it? Smashing the old subscribe button, that would mean the world to me. Thank you so much. And if you'd like to support the channel even further, please check out channel memberships. So welcome to another interview in the FPL Manager, Meet the FPL Manager, Meet the Content Creator interview series, where I ask one of our lovely FPL content creators to come on to chat about their experiences of content creation, their thoughts on mental health, and we have a general chat about how their season is going. Well, we usually do that, but we're not going to do that today because we're not during the season. So, for the latest entry in the series and the first for the upcoming 25-26 season, I am joined by one of the best known faces in FPL, Gianni Buttic. I've got that right?
You butchered it a bit, but that's fine. I'm used to it. Like, imagine having my name going to school in England as a kid. Like every like assembly or like register with a new teacher, it was always butchered completely. So you did all right.
If I tried to read it, it would be Butters, I think. Or
Butters. Yeah. I mean, do you know what it is? This makes me sound real. I can say wanky, I guess, right? There's an accent on the E, and because there's an accent on the E, it's not Buttice or Batiste.
Oh, I know it's though.
Butticè. As my mum would, or Butticè, like Butticè if you're in Italy, or Butticè if you're in England. But yeah, it's Gianni Butticè or Gianni Butticè. But you know, I'm used to it. It's fine.
I'm not going to go back and re-record the intro.
No, mate, I don't want you to re-record anything from this interview. I'm hoping there are zero. In fact, let's insist zero edits.
Zeros.
That's no fun. That's not a real interview if you're clipping stuff and you're having to edit stuff out. So no, this has got to be laid bare, completely one take wonder. I'm looking forward to the chat, mate.
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much for coming on, mate. You had a good summer. You were in Sicily, weren't you?
Yeah, do you know what? My dad's Sicilian, so I'm half Sicilian, but no, I was in Tuscany. So
Tuscany.
I used to go to Sicily. I used to go to Sicily every year as a kid, and I always felt like it was like going back in time. Which now, in my mid-30s, that would be quite cool, like going back to a nice little village in Sicily where people don't have smartphones and internet and stuff. But as a kid, I hated it. I hated it being like so disconnected from the world I knew.
They've not got smartphones or the internet.
I mean, they kind of have, but they didn't when I was growing up. When everyone else in England did. Sicily is the the deep south, and it's the north-south divide in Italy, and it's very much like probably the 90s in England. But yeah, I was in Tuscany. Don't have family in Tuscany, but wanted a little adventure. So yeah, my wife and I were there with our daughter and our dog for 3 months, which was quite an adventure. I had to be really careful with how I planned that trip because I was like, April and May are the two quietest months of the FPL calendar. Yeah. And then June is the month off, right? So I was like, it has to be April, May, June. And it has to be good weather. And again, like spring to summer is good. Like as we left, my wife was like, oh, it's getting too hot now. I'm glad we're leaving at the end of June. Like, that's worked out well. So yeah, it was good 3 months.
Can I ask you a question? This isn't in the script, but I've always wanted to ask you this. Are you any good at pool? Because I always notice that table. I'm addicted to pool. Yeah. I'm useless nowadays, but I used to be good when I was a kid. Are you any good at it?
Used to be. I reckon. So there's no balls on the table now. I reckon. So I've not played properly since maybe the last 10 years. But I've got the table, so I don't want to part with it because I know one day I'll want to play a lot and kids and stuff like that.
Is it pool or mini snooker?
It's an 8-foot table, so it's a 2/3 snooker table. So it's great for pool. Like if you go to a pub and you play pool, you're playing on one that's very small, sort of 6-foot tables, right? Yeah. So it's a big pool table, which is great. If you play American pool, it's sort of a similar size to that with smaller pockets. But I do play snooker on it too. So I've got like 10 red balls. You can't play 15 reds. On it. But yeah, it's great. At the end of my streams, I used to on some of my deadline streams do like people would do requests like, will you take a shot? And if the black goes in, I'm going to captain Salah. And if the black doesn't go in, I'm going to captain Haaland. So I would do destiny shots at the end of some of my deadline streams last season. And I didn't realise at the time, but Neil Robertson, who I chat to, Neil Robertson was watching, and I was like, oh, like former world snooker champion.
He went on Raptors therapy, didn't he?
Oh, maybe, I don't know.
He did a few months ago, yeah.
Right, yeah, okay. So I've streamed quite a lot with Neil on my channel, but I didn't know he was watching my Deadline stream. Like, no one watches my Deadline streams. So when he commented in the chat, like commenting on like my technique, I think he said you need to bend your knees more or something. I was like, oh my God, I'm playing pool in front of Neil. Neil's become a mate, but I still get nervy playing pool in front of him. So yeah, I'm not bad at pool, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, I love watching Neil. After O'Sullivan, he's my favourite player. Anyway, let's get to the question. So
O'Sullivan was my idol to a point where at like 13, 14, I was like, I'm not playing right-handed anymore because he played both. I wanted to learn to play both, so I like went a whole year of just playing like left-handed pool.
You must be slightly ambidextrous then, because if I try to play left-handed, I can't even hit the ball.
Oh, I don't know, man. It's just practice. Like, I'm not ambidextrous at all. I'm terrible with my left foot at football. Like, I can't throw with my left hand. But playing pool left-handed, because I did it for a year, and obviously, like, I'm better than my mates at pool because I've got a pool table. So I joke with them. I'm like, come around and play pool. This is going back a bit. I'll play you left-handed. And it's like then an even game, which makes me sound like really cocky and a really good pool player. I'm not, but I loved O'Sullivan that much that I learned to play left-handed.
So the way I usually start these off, mate, is by asking a few general questions about yourself, such as we already talked about this before we started recording. But where do you grow up? Who do you support? What are your first memories of football? Things like that, mate.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, my childhood had a lot to do with football because my dad was such a massive football fan, like still is. And my dad's always been AC Milan, Italy. Like, they're the two teams that matter. And as a kid growing up in England with an Italian father, I only ever watched football with him. Because people always say, why do you support Italy and not England? It's like, yes, I live in England, and yes, I'm half English, and yes, England's the place I know and love. But whoever you watch football with as a kid often influences your choices. There's loads of Man United fans that might live in London that go, I'm a Man United fan because my dad's a Man United fan, or maybe because they were the best team when they were younger, whatever. So yeah, I grew up watching my dad and therefore loved Italian football. And in England in the 90s, it was on terrestrial TV.
Yeah,
you could watch Channel 4, James Richardson. Football Italia. Yeah. You get, I think, 2 lives on a Sunday, and you get a highlights pack on a Saturday morning from the week before. And everyone knows that theme tune. And on terrestrial TV, when we had 4 channels, you couldn't watch Premier League football on those channels. So Italian football was huge for all my mates that were English anyway. But obviously, I then continued to follow it, and they were the best league at the time. So AC Milan, I guess, was my first team, and that is the 95 Milan kit. Was my first ever shirt. So I remember my mum saying to me, you got football training now, you're 7 years old. You can have that shirt with your name on the back, or you can have the full kit with your shorts and your socks. You can't have both because it was expensive. And I remember going, I'll have a name and number. And I'd watched the right back, Christian Panucci, with my dad and gone, oh, I really like him. He got forward loads at the time. So I had number 2. What kid has a number 2 on their first ever football shirt? I had 2. And I didn't know it was surnames. And I was with my mum at the time, not my dad. So I had Gianni 2 on the back. Now, on that shirt, I've got Baggio 18 on the back. I've since bought it and gone, I need to buy the shirt I had as a kid. Obviously, it's much smaller than the one as a kid. But yeah, Milan was my first shirt. I grew up in Bedford. Bedford is a place in England which has more Italians in the world than anywhere else Bedford has more Italians in... Yeah. I want to make sure I get this right, because someone's going to check this out, and it's factual, right? There are more Italians in Bedford than anywhere else in the world outside of Italy, percentage population-wise. Of course, there's more Italians in New York, there's more Italians in London, but percentage population, 1 in 4 in Bedford have Italian heritage. It's really? When my granddad and in the 70s, 80s moved over. A lot from Sicily and a lot from South Italy. So a lot from Naples, a lot from Agrigento in Sicily are in Bedford. And they then since moved back. My grandparents stayed for like 15 years, 20 years, moved back. And yeah, there's now a lot of 2nd and 3rd generation Italians there. So yeah, I'm from Bedford, played a lot of football as a kid, watched football with my dad, supported AC Milan, but mainly Italy. And my first football memories are around Italy, the national team. But I wanted an English team because I was like, all my mates, I'm going to football training, they're all wearing Man United and Liverpool shirts. Like, who am I going to choose? And I remember saying to my dad, like, I need an English team. And he was like, well, support Man United then. And I got bought a Man United shirt, and I had the 95 black sharp view cam kit. And this has been since reminded to me when I've posted a picture years ago on Twitter being like, you're always anti-United, yet here you are wearing a shirt as a 7-year-old. I'm like, dude, I never supported them. And then I realized like I wanted to make my own choice. And it was around, I think, 1997 by this point. A couple of years in, it was like, I'm 9-10 years old, pick an English team. And at the time, Chelsea was starting to buy loads of players from Serie A.
This Zola, Di Matteo.
Yeah, Di Matteo, Zola, Vialli, Ruud Gullit. Like Ruud Gullit was from AC Milan. So even the non-Italian players would go into Chelsea. And players from Serie A. Later on, Christian Panucci, George Ware, like loads went. So yeah, I was like, I'm going to support Chelsea. And people say to me, like, they expect a non-Londoner that supports Chelsea that's in their mid-30s to be a glory supporter. You support Chelsea because they were starting to win stuff. I'm like, no, I supported them firstly a little bit before they started to win stuff. Like they won the FA Cup, I think, in 97 and again in 2000. My first final that I ever went to was Euro 2000, the last ever final at the old Wembley, and Chelsea beat Aston Villa in a terrible game.
Like the Di Matteo 30 seconds?
No, that was the 97 game against Borough. The Di Matteo won the goal in the early. It was a tap in from, I can't even remember. Oh, Di Matteo again. It was a tap in from a corner. So yeah, I mean, I'm sort of I am a Chelsea fan. It's my English team, but I must admit, FPL has kind of changed my love of Chelsea. Like, of course, I'm a Chelsea fan, but my main team, when people ask me, my main football team is Italy. Like, it's the national team. And after that, I have a big interest in Italian teams in Europe because I want Milan to do well. I want Inter to do well. I want Juventus to do well because when they're playing non-Italian opposition, I feel like I'm kind of getting behind and supporting, I guess, still the country. But all my earliest football memories are around Italy. And I remember the 94 World Cup. There's a picture on my wall there of Baggio celebrating early on in the competition in the white kit. But I've also got another picture somewhere. It's out of shot. It's next to Ronaldo. It's Baggio there missing against Brazil.
Hands final, yeah.
He was the best player in the world at the time. I think he won the Ballon d'Or that year. And obviously Italy, Brazil, World Cup final, Rose Bowl, LA. The first real big commercial World Cup because the Americans did it so well. And the best player in the world there. And Romario was playing for Brazil, Baggio for Italy. Now, I'm only like 6-7 years old at the time in 1994, but I remember distinctly my dad staying up late and I was at the top of the stairs because I was meant to be in bed. And I remember him screaming because Italy had lost the World Cup final.
Yeah, I've got similar memories of my dad in the 1990 World Cup and them going out in the semi-finals on...
penalties. The Gaza inches away with his toes.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of younger people actually probably won't remember because every club is so full of foreign players now. But Chelsea were really the first big team that went that way, weren't they? With like even well before Abramovich, like.
Like late 90s, even that FA Cup final I talk about in 2000. I'm trying to think of how many English players would have been in that 11. Dennis Wise was probably the only one off the top of my head. Like, it was always a very international flavour, which was probably part of the charm. And I didn't want to support the same team as all my mates. Like when I got bought that Man United shirt, I remember wearing it to football and being like, this is cool. Everyone else is in Bedford supports, because there's no team locally that's in the Premier League. They all support Liverpool or Arsenal or Man United. But I kind of just wanted to be a little bit different, I guess. And I didn't want to keep wearing my AC Milan shirt. I wanted to be involved in an English team supporter. So Chelsea was an obvious fit.
Yeah. So I'll just ask you this quickly. I know we've only got about an hour, just over an hour, but do you reckon are you confident ahead of Chelsea in terms of the Premier League this season? I mean, obviously we were recording this during the Club World Cup, but there's no point in mentioning that because this won't be coming out for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Confident ahead of the new season?
More confident than last. I like Maresca. Not sure he's the manager that's going to win us stuff, but Chelsea are in such huge transition. Maybe he doesn't have to. Like, yeah, cool. Conference League. But are we going to be winning Premier Leagues and Champions League with Maresca and with this squad? Probably not, but I like the journey we're going on. I like the young players. I love some of the recent signings. Like Liam Delap is going to be an awesome signing. Like as we record this, he's just scored his first Chelsea goal and in the Club World Cup, and he took it so well. And he offers, I think, more than Nicholas Jackson.
Yeah.
And I like Jackson as a player. I don't like his finishing, but I like what he does for the team. And Maresca loves Jackson, but Jackson is suspended for game week 1.
What did he do? Because I'm not watching the Club World Cup, but
in the Club World Cup, he came on and 4 minutes in, he got a straight red for a terrible tackle.
Yeah, he got a lot of stick on.
So he's spent 2-match ban in the Club World Cup, but also the ban in the Premier League from the end of last season. So we know game week 1, Liam Delap is starting game week 1, like fact, if he's fit, unless Chelsea go and buy another 9, right?
No.
So Jackson can't play game week 1. So Delap's got a real chance to cement his place, because at the moment, like going into that, let's say Jackson's not suspended, you probably go, it's a coin toss. Who's going to be the starting number 9 for Chelsea game week 1? And I think many of us want to know that because they're going to be priced cheap and they've got good fixtures. And maybe there'll be drafts where we go, we can't actually afford Palmer and we want Chelsea attacking cover. So I think Delap's going to be a bit of a, I mean, let's see. We don't know what they're going to price him at, but I think he's going to be a very popular pick game week 1. And if he plays well in game week 1, he keeps his spot. And Jackson's got to wait on the sidelines. And Delap is a much better finisher.
Yeah, not difficult. So
not difficult, no.
So when did you first get into fantasy football, mate? And any early memories stick out of I know your early fantasy football playing days?
Yeah, I started playing at uni, and it was my best mate at the time who was knocking on my door, being like, "We got to set we've got to set up a mini league. We got to play."
This is FPL.
FPL, yeah. So this is going back to the late 2000s, like 2008, 9 maybe. So I was like, yeah, I love this. This is great. We had a friendship, which was, we called the Pentagon. There were 5 of us, right? And our nickname still, our WhatsApp group is the Pentagon, and we're still all best mates. And it was Luke that kind of started the momentum there when let's I play already. You boys are going to love this. All we talk about all day is football. Let's join this league. So at the time, like, we had a mini league and it was just playing for mini league success. And then probably for 5, 6, 7 years, no more, probably, I don't know, I'm trying to think what year I took it. I only started really taking it seriously beyond mini league success when I started doing content. And that was probably like, I don't know, 2017. 16, 17 maybe. I didn't even know overall rank was a thing. I didn't know how to check it. I didn't know it was something you could measure. I just knew my mini league, and for 10 years, pretty much, I played just for mini league success. And I did stupid stuff, right? Like, we had a rule one season where it was, you're not allowed to pick your least favorite player. So I went a whole season without picking Wayne Rooney. I didn't like him. He weren't allowed to be in our team. So we did stupid stuff like that, which obviously logged against my like overall history. But I realized I was often beating my mates in the mini league, and I took it more seriously than they did. So I would win the mini league every year. I'd win money. We always chucked money in, and I was like, oh yeah, this is quite good. And it got to the point where I was like, oh, I'm going to write a book. And it was one of the lads in the group, the Pentagon, Toby, that said, I really want to write a book. Like, he's really into writing, and he's never written a book. And he was like, it would make sense to do it about fantasy football, and it'd be really good to do it together. Do you fancy doing it? I want to call it unlocking. Oh no, let's make it about finishing in the top 1%, because he had worked out that between us.
I was expecting you to pull out a copy of it there.
Oh, I was gunny. I hesitated. It's very dusty. And look, it isn't a plug, because genuinely, I'm not sure if it's even available now. And I wouldn't recommend reading it, because the examples in here are like Lukaku being good at Man United. Like
8 years old.
Yeah, it really is. I don't even know the date. Yeah, published 2019. So yeah, it's a cool book. Wasn't many books, if any, out at the time on FPL. And we had loads of 1% finishes. We didn't know top 10K was a thing. So when we published the book, we then got Twitter accounts and we started promoting it, because we knew there was this world out there of FPL Twitter. So we had a few comments being like, why didn't you call it top 10K? Now, firstly, we didn't have 10K finishes. And secondly, we didn't know that was the bar. We thought 1% was a cool bar. Ironically, now, a lot of people talk about being in the top 1%, and because 10K's become such a struggle, because there's so many more engaged managers. But yeah, it's a really cool book. I loved writing, and it all came from just a love of FPL. But without the book, I don't do any content. Like, I don't go on Twitter, and then I don't end up on the fantasy show, and I don't do. I'm not a voice in the Premier League space. I'm only that because of a book that, you know, sold a few copies, and it was just more of a hobby than anything. So yeah,
let's move on to talk about that then. So the main part of the interview is about your content creation experiences. So now obviously we've exchanged a few messages. I've made some notes on this that I might get into if we miss out on anything. But you said to me, so you wrote the book, and then Jules Breach reached out to you to go on the Premier League show. Is that right?
Yeah, so I asked Jules to forward the book. So it's forwarded by Jules Breach, because I was like, the one bit of content I used to absorb was the fantasy show, because Jules used to...
Yeah, I was just going to say, for people who don't remember, she was the host with James Richardson, wasn't she, back in the day?
Exactly, and loving James Richardson as my idol from watching Football Italia in the 90s. When an old friend of mine, Jules Breach, who I used to work with when I worked in shopping television, which, you know, it was an old job of mine. So I worked in shopping TV when I graduated, like, I don't know, 2011, 12,
QVC?
13. A lesser channel than QVC. Yeah, QVC was the pinnacle. I was down there at Bidup TV that is now went into administration.
I remember that. Me and my mate used to just watch it because there was a guy on there who was so terribly cheesy. We just used to laugh.
Peter Simon, probably. I used to produce him. And late night, we would always get a lot of channel flickers after Match of the Day. So I would make sure as a producer, it was like, oh, Match of the Day's just finished. Let's make sure I'm selling a man's watch and not a flower pot. Like, because it was, you know, oh, it's the adverts of Coronation Street. Might get some channel flickers. Let's sell a garden gnome, similar, or, you know, or whatever. So it was an amazing job. I loved it. It was so much fun. But Jules was one of the young, like, up and coming presenters there, who was. It's a great introduction to TV. You're in your early 20s and you want to get on-screen hours. There was a lot of very good presenters that have come into the sports space or other spaces that started in Selly Telly, because they got that experience as a 22-year-old or whatever on screen.
If you want to be an FPL presenter in the future, get on to Bidup TV.
Well, not anymore, because shopping TV isn't as what it used to be, because online. The internet exists, right? It used to be the alternative to the high street. Like, you can, and sure, you can still go onto QVC, and a few of the other channels aren't around anymore because the internet took over, and internet sales took over. But yeah, now it's not so popular. But yeah, I can't remember. Oh, that was it, Jules. So I knew Jules. We were good friends, and we kept in touch. And then she started presenting the fantasy show, and I was like, great, I can't wait to watch this. And I'd watch it. They'd do a Facebook Live every week, and then they would do the show, which you can watch online. And I remember saying to her, Jules, I'm quite good at FPL. Like, I keep winning my mini league with only my 5 mates, but I understand how TV works because I'd worked in that space. Any chance I could come on as like a pundit or anything? Like, at the time, there was only one pundit.
That Mark? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Just Mark. But Mark decided to take a year out. He may have even spoke about it on your interview.
He talks about it quite a bit.
Yeah. So when Mark stepped down, they then brought in rotating pundits. So FPL General was one of them. I think FPL Family, David Monday was the editing scout at the time, and maybe Holly Shan. There was like 4 or 5. So I saw this and was like, oh, maybe I can be a rotating pundit. So Jules was like, if you do some content and are a name in the community, I can definitely say to the producer, you can come on for a trial, like, fine. And I was like, I don't do anything. I don't do a podcast. There was a few at the time. I don't do YouTube. I'm not on Twitter, but I was like, I am thinking about writing a book. In fact, if I was to write a book, how do you feel about forwarding it? She was like, no, of course. So fast forward 6 months, I actually think I'd already started writing the book. I must have done, because within a few months, I had a trial. So I went in for a trial show, and it's not like you go in for a screen test. You go in and they put you on air. And look, it was a big gamble, because they were going just on Jules's word. They hadn't seen me like the other guys they had seen on YouTube. They could go, oh, they're all right. I watch General because he does a YouTube thing every week or whatever.
Do they do like makeup and all that sort of stuff there? I guess they must do.
Yeah. It's a proper like studio setup. And I remember going on the first show, holding this book. They were like, because they wanted to introduce me as someone credible enough. So it was like, they mentioned the book. And when James plugged the book, I was like, this is unbelievable. I asked James to sign this book. And he was like, it's your book. Like, and I gave him a copy. He would say, he was so sweet. He went, I'll sign yours if you sign mine. And I was like, oh my God, I'm signing a book for James Richardson. So I had my trial show, and then, yeah, the rest is history, as they say. Like, I guess the trial show went well enough for them to keep asking me back. And I then became one of the 3 or 4 regulars, and then kept getting more and more shows. And it got to a point where in COVID, there was an even smaller rotating list, because some, like David Monday, couldn't come from Exeter, and General couldn't come from Scotland. And it was pretty much, I was on, I don't know, I guess every week or every other week for a season or 2, which was amazing because of COVID, the schedule was so condensed, and it was great. We were sometimes going on doing FPL shows like Wednesday night after a game, and it's done by the Premier League Productions. And what people don't realize is it's a TV production company, Premier League Productions, that produce content like 4 or 5 days a week, and they do all the match day lives. So when you see clips on social, we don't get to watch it in England, but they'll produce a match day live, just like a Sky Sports would, around a big game. And that will go live to like 150 countries around the world from that studio. Or from that game. They produced awesome content with pundits that we know. Like, they'll have Ian Wright and Alan Shearer in, and you're like, oh, I know those guys. So by going in and doing the fantasy show, you get to meet so many that do the other bits of content there.
It's interesting, actually, because I imagine for a lot of people, you know, they start on YouTube, whatever, and almost like the ultimate goal or experience would be appearing on the FPL show, whereas you've kind of gone the opposite way. You've sort of like started at the pinnacle. I'm not saying you worked your way down, but you know what I mean? And then you started producing other content. So another thing I got noticed down here is, of course, I mean, so the first time I saw you, which I'll put in the video description, was doing your team reveals weekly with Az. So how did that like link with Scout come about?
As soon as I was on the FPL show, I had a call from Scout pretty much being like, will you be one of our pro pundits? Because they realized that I wasn't attached to anything, right? I wasn't on a podcast. I wasn't on a show. So they wanted me to be a pro pundit and do a weekly team reveal. At the time, Let's Talk FPL. So before Az, Andy had that job. So Andy was the video guy for Scout. And I then did a weekly team section for a couple of years with Andy. And then Andy left, and I did a couple of years with Az. I then realized I didn't want to do my team selection every week on Scout because, and this is probably after like 6 years of doing it, because I wanted to set up my own channel. But for 6-ish years, I did it on my own YouTube content through Scout, which was great. At the time, there wasn't many channels. So I would do a team selection with Andy on a Wednesday, and it would get really good views that perhaps you wouldn't see any more on Scout because there's so many channels. There's so much competition. At the time. The space was so much smaller. So there was less to watch, but it was great for me because I guess it built my profile. It gave me an introduction to doing YouTube, and I never had ambitions to set up my own channel. I was always just really happy going along and just being like, someone can interview me for 45 minutes a week. I get to talk about FPL. It prepares me a bit for when I do the show. But yeah, the idea of setting up a channel was never on my radar. I was watching loads of people set up channels doing well and going, it's great, it's their thing. It's not my thing. My thing is doing my day job and doing the studio stuff.
It's a lot easier to just go on someone else's channel.
Yeah. And that was why I was so hesitant. Don't get me wrong. I think the idea was probably quite nice to have a YouTube channel, but I was always very scared of doing the tech, especially like proper scared. Like I would never host a stream for Scout because I couldn't do the buttons. I was scared of doing the buttons. So I got nervous on the idea of having to do the buttons when Scout said, can you host these watch-alongs we want to start doing? And I did it for a season, but it's a nightmare. My palms, it was horrible. And that's why I never had a channel. I was 5, 6, 7 years late in my head. I was like, 7 years ago, I was going to set up a channel. I've been saying I might do it for 7 years, but never done it because I was scared of pushing the buttons, and I've got no interest in stuff like editing.
Yeah. It was one of the things I was going to mention about Scout. I've got a lot of notes here, but you did one. It was a couple of seasons ago. You did a show with, was it FPL Gunner, the guy who'd won FPL?
Oh, with Alli, yeah.
What was that like? Because I've kind of got this theory that people, when they have, because I know he finished 50th and then he finished first. It's like once they win FPL, they always seem to have a bad season afterwards. Because I remember his season after that wasn't great. But anyway,
it was really bad.
Yeah, what was that like?
It was bad the year he did the content with me. Yeah, Ali's a good friend of mine, and he finished 215th and then first in 2 successive years. Like, you'll never see anyone have a better 2 season run than that. I don't think, like, if you were to tell me even someone finished, I don't know, 100th and then 50th, sure, that's amazing, and combined that's a lower rank, but 215 and 1, like, that is insane. Because when you see the ones, it's, as you say, it's often from a space of they've never even finished in the top 100k, and here they are winning the game. So Ali bucked that trend. I had him. I just launched my channel the season he won it.
And 2 years ago.
Yeah. And he was watching me. He was I got to know him because he was someone that watched my channel. So I'd see him in the live chat. And anyway, he was like, I'm 7th in FPL. And I'd be like, no way, you're watching me and you're 7th. So we became mates. And it got to the point where we were talking daily for his final few months of the season. Not that look, I'm not trying to I'm really not trying to take any prizes for supporting him win FPL, but we were mates and we spoke every day about FPL, and I knew all of his decisions. So what I like to do on my YouTube channel is I like to interview people that are doing well, because I like to interview, a bit like you. Like I like the idea of hearing from other people. So I knew he was doing well.
I was going to say, I was kind of inspired. I had the winner of FPL Challenge on here last week.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Which, to be honest, didn't get many views, which I think is a shame, because without going into a tangent, the winner of the normal game gets so much
attention.
And challenge, like, I think he got 100 extra Twitter followers, but it's basically like nothing had happened. So I kind of felt sorry for him a bit. But anyway, sorry about interrupting you.
Yeah, no, not at all. So yeah, Ali I saw he was doing great. It's February. I was like, mate, do you fancy coming on my channel and doing like team reveals? Like, I've got the world number 5 here that watches my channel and has become a mate. So he was coming on my channel every week. The season he won it, but he wasn't revealing like what his transfer was going to be per se, because it got to the point where he was like, I don't want to do any vids. It's April and I could win this thing. So we were just talking on voice notes all the time. He's in Azerbaijan and he came to England with his prize and we met up and stuff. Nice. But because I knew he was great to talk to and he'd been on my channel, I said to Scout, I was like, get him on next season. Like, I do what my commitment with Scout is, I do a weekly YouTube episode for them, but I'd stopped doing my own team reveals because I had my own channel, as we discussed earlier. Like I said, I don't want to do a team reveal with Az anymore. I want to put that on my channel.
And he could talk as well, couldn't he? He wasn't like,
he was awkward. Yeah, exactly. He's a really good talker. And his words were, I'll do it if it's with Gianni because we're mates. And it was his first experience of doing content. He wanted it to be a fun chat every week. So yeah, for the season after he won, we did it. Now he said last season he didn't want to do it again, but he might do it. He might come back to it. So he just did it for a year with Scout, and he might come back. But he's in my WhatsApp group. I've got an FPL WhatsApp group, and Ali's one of the big voices in there. And yeah, Arsenal fan. I love the way he plays. The reason we bond so well is we have a similar playing style. He's just way better at it than I am.
well, certainly that season. So just a couple of other things before I go into North. So you also said you worked for Sky Sports, and you said you also, and this I wasn't aware of, presented a bit on Arsenal's YouTube channel. How did those come about?
Yeah, so Sky Sports, so FPL Show, we all know, right? Everyone's seen it in some way, shape, or form over the years. Produced by the Premier League, weekly show. Sky used to have their own game, their own fantasy game. When they decided to get rid of their fantasy game.
It's only recent, wasn't it?
Yeah, a few years ago, a couple of years ago, they got rid of it. And it coincided with them going, we actually want to do a bit of FPL content. So I should go back a step. Before they decided to do their own FPL content, and I don't know if this is interesting to anyone, but just for the background, you know, I mentioned Premier League have their own production studio. Yeah. They're doing all this content throughout the week. They then give it to all the rights holders around the world. So you can watch the FPL show live, or it's now called the Fantasy Show, live across the world. If you're in Dubai, it's on beIN. If you're in India, it's on Star Sports, whatever. But you don't watch it live in England. But they do give it to TNT and they do give it to Sky, and it's put on later. I think Sky had seen the numbers were quite good for that people were watching the show on catch up through Sky at Friday night, 8 p.m, whatever. So they thought, well, let's do our own content. So they launched on Sky Sports News, which is a channel everyone is like, it's on in every football club up and down the country on a Saturday.
On a lot of pubs.
And every pub, exactly. Yeah. So they were like, well, let's do our own half-an-hour show. So I think it was 2 seasons ago, they launched their own half-an-hour segment on Sky Sports News, where for half an hour, every Saturday morning, just before the deadline, 11 o'clock deadline, we'll go live at 10:30 and do 30 minutes on Sky Sports News. presented by Hayley McQueen. Again, very familiar face. Her dad used to play for Man United. She's used to present for MUTV and has been a presenter at Sky for decades. And then alongside a couple of guests. At the time, they had a very different panel of guests when they first launched. They used a lot of the guys from Fantasy Football Hub. I remember seeing John Nellis on there, who's a football content creator now.
Yeah, he's massive, isn't he?
He's Matt, yeah. And again, he perhaps wasn't so big when he was doing that 2 years ago, but they used FPL Salah, they used FPL General, and it was just 2 guests on Zoom for 20 minutes every Saturday morning. But about, I don't know, a few months in, they decided to stop doing Zoom and treat it like proper, we're going to bring the guests in the studio. And that happened. And I got the call to come in again, a bit like the fantasy show. You know, when you get that call, it's effectively a trial. You do it once. And I've seen loads of people do one show on the fantasy show, for example.
Never on again.
And then you don't get asked back.
Yeah.
So you know it's a trial and you know you've got to do well. So you're a little bit nervous that first show because it's like, if I don't do enough, they're not going to ask me back. Like I don't just have to not make a mistake. I need to do enough for them to ask me back, but I don't need to, need to make a mistake.
Do you reckon they judge you in terms of how well you talk? Because I guess they can't judge you on your actual player piece because it's so random, particularly in one show. They couldn't.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
No, they don't. They're not there for your rank or your recommendation as to the player you've talked about in the show needs to bang that weekend.
Yeah.
It's more, have you got a good enough
screen presence?
Okay. No, do you know? I'm going to go off on a tangent here a little bit, but it comes to a later point. We'll probably talk about the whole expert tag. So one thing producers of those 2 shows are looking for is, of course, you need to be good enough at FPL to be on.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to call you an expert. You can't be rubbish at the game. You're allowed to have a rubbish season, though, or a couple of rubbish seasons, but you need to have a history behind you that suggests you're a good enough manager. That doesn't mean you need to have won it or you need to have 10 top 10K finishes. It means you probably need to have 10 top 100K finishes or however long you've been playing. You need a good ratio of very good ranks.
You want to be around the top 100,000 most of the time.
I'd have thought so. Like they will say you need good ranks. So whatever people deem good ranks as different things. So that's probably 25% of what they're looking for. First and foremost, you need to be good at the game, right? And you probably need to have a bit of profile like we spoke about earlier. You need to be on a pod or have a Twitter account or have written a book. But the massive part of what they're looking for, that other 50% or 75% is you need to be able to communicate and talk about the game and hold an audience and understand the dynamic of television or pod, whatever platform you're on, as to what can make good content. And that's not someone going on and reading from a sheet their notes and giving 3-minute answers. It's live TV at Sky. It's something like, it's a 30-minute slot, but with the ad break and then the gap for the titles, we come off at 57, which is a good 3 minutes for me to make my transfer before the hour. I sometimes feel like I'm at a bit of a disadvantage with leaks and stuff. But with the ad break, you're probably only on for 20 minutes. And you need to get through a whole game week preview with another guest
20 minutes.
in 20 minutes. So you're probably only talking for 7 or 8 minutes in terms of stuff, and you're probably answering 10 questions. You need to give 30 to 45 second answers, and you need to know how to do that. So they're looking for people that can articulate, people that can hold an audience, people that maybe look interesting and sound interesting.
You've got to be quick thinking in that sort of situation, haven't you? Come up with it.
I guess so. And different producers will look for different things. Like the fantasy show might have a slightly different brief. Like they might look for more of an FPL nerd type than Sky Sports News that might be going through a transition and go, we want to hit a younger audience and be young, cool and trendy. So we might ask a different type of guest, a more YouTube audience, for example. Like I've noticed on Sky for some of their transfer stuff, they're using like YouTubers from non-FPL, non-football spaces.
They've got rid of the whole. They've got rid of the whole general soccer Saturday now, and it's all like a load of football YouTubers basically sitting around chatting, isn't it?
Yeah, they've got a different version of Soccer Saturday, but it's been rebranded. Yeah, so it's definitely businesses will change and their audience will change. And I'm hoping like they don't start using, loads of random YouTubers that don't play FPL properly as experts. I don't think they would. But yeah, it's what producers are looking for. So rank matters, but you'll know anyone that goes on those shows is there to be shot at because jealousy does exist. And if I'm talking about the game that a lot of people out there know and love, and I'm having a bad season, it's very easy to throw stones. Why is he on the TV talking about the game I know and love, and he's at 500k in the world? What a load of rubbish! What a fraud!
So move on a bit. This sort of leads in, I think, to the next question. What would you say? Are you full time, by the way? Content creator.
I feel like I've been full time for a couple of years, but I do also have a day job.
That's street
my day job is my day job is 2 days a week. It's part time, and it's fairly flexible. But yeah, I feel like I'm full time, and my day job is more a passion and an interest more than a way of earning a living.
Is that still Street Child?
Street Child United. So yeah, I mean, working for a charity, it's 2 days a week. It's not my main source of income, and FPL is. So it is. I feel like I'm full time.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah,
effectively I'm full time. Yeah.
So yeah, to lead into what you're saying, what would you say are the positives and negatives of being a FPL content creator?
I feel like it's the best job in the world. Like, I love it, but I think I love it because I've never had, or I currently don't have, all my eggs in one basket. If my full-time job was to be an FPL content creator and I had just my Twitter account and that was everything, I feel like I'd probably get bored of that very quickly. Or if I just did one podcast, I'd get bored of that very quickly.
A lot of things, So I should have asked you about your own YouTube channel as well.
No. If I just did YouTube, and if I was a full-time YouTuber, and I know there's plenty out there, I think I would probably struggle with that too. I'd get bored of that. I think I feel like it's the best job in the world, and probably believe it is the best job in the world, because YouTube is probably only 25%. Twitter is only 5%. Being on shows and Premier League content is maybe another 25%. Like, it's writing articles for sportcasting is a different one. Like, it's I need the variety because I get bored easily.
Yeah, that's really good. That it's quite eclectic, and yeah, I can see what you mean. Because a lot of people, when I ask that question, who have said that it can become a drag. Times, most people love it, but it can become a drag. It is because they've just got the one YouTube channel, and I guess you're still in the same situation. They feel, you have to get out 4 or 5 videos every week, and it's sort of the grind. But
a little bit, but maybe less so than the full-time YouTubers, because they have that might be their, I don't know. Let's say let's say if you're full-time FPL, you might earn 95% of your income through YouTube. So you have to put 95% of your energy into it and have to make sure every week you're doing 4 videos. For me, it's a small slice, and I've got a lot of small slices, and I think I need that, because if one of those slices was 95%, one, I'd get bored early. 2, I probably wouldn't enjoy it. At times, it would feel like a job and a slog, and I'd be doing it just because I need to and I have to. Fortunately, I'm not there. Look, I probably should spend more time and energy on some of those slices. But I feel like I need the variety to have longevity and for it to continue to be wholesome and enjoyable.
So I'm going to skip for any normal watchers may notice that I'm skipping for a couple of questions here just to make sure we keep on track. But I'll ask you this.
My meeting's been pushed to that other time slot I gave you.
Oh, okay. So we've got an extra.
I said I'd emailed and said about 15 minutes later, I've had a response. That's good. So
we're got about
till 45.
We've got about another 50 minutes then, 40, 50.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'll ask you a couple of questions. What advice then would you give to any FPL content creators wanting to start out?
We said there'd be no edits. Or start out. My biggest advice in terms of mistakes I made was don't hesitate. Like, if you want to create content and you want to be on YouTube, for example, or start a podcast, do it. Let's do it. It doesn't have to be the finished article straight away. Like, just give it a go. And yes, you might look back in 2 years' time and go, oh, doesn't it look rubbish? Or I didn't know how to use OBS then and I used this or whatever. It's fine. Just put yourself out there and give it a go. I thought about it for 7 years. And I did content. So I felt like because I was doing content, I was kind of doing it. It wasn't my own channel. And now I look back and go, God, if I had have done it 7 years ago, maybe my YouTube would be bigger and better. Rather than starting 2 years ago. So yeah, just do it. Just go for it and ask advice from people in the community. Like, I've had a lad I had on the channel because he was in the top 20 in the world at the end of last season. He's only 17. No, sorry, he's 15. Charlie.
Wow.
I messaged him being like, yeah, I want to get you on. I didn't realize you were 15. I knew you were young. Just checking with your parents.
Permission, yeah.
Yeah, I did. So Charlie messaged me the other day being like, I want to start up a YouTube channel. I want it to be on the Championship. He's a Bristol fan, Bristol City fan, and on FPL. And I gave him loads of advice on that. We had lots of voice notes back and forth. Like, that's awesome, Charlie. Definitely start that channel. But is it an FPL channel or a Bristol City channel or a Championship channel? Maybe do two and try both and see what you like. It's probably not the same one. So, and we spoke mics and cameras and all of that stuff. But just put yourself out there, ask advice, get started, and give it a go. Like, I talk about it being way more crowded market space now, but if you're doing things a bit differently or you're doing things well, there's enough growth in this game for lots of new creators to come into the space and do really well out the space and maybe earn money out the space or whatever. But it's something I would encourage anyone to do if you want to. If content creation and FPL is your hobby and you want to make content, then go for it.
And there's different channels out there as well, isn't there? Like what I'm doing here, our good friend,
Point of difference.
Our good friend Andrew, FPL Nightmares, different Yelena's vlogs, all that.
I love both those content creators you've spoken about. Like Yelena's vlogs are so refreshing. I loved it when Andrew on FPL Nightmare he caught everyone's attention from his weird black background and his planets. Like that was great. And I know he's moving away from some of that, but even the walk-alongs he does, it's brilliant content and it's refreshing and it's new. And there's a lot of opinion out there. This is a game of opinion. And I love hearing from new people with new ideas who play the game differently. You don't have to be 2000th in the world to feel like you can make a channel.
No.
You have to, you don't even, it's not even going back to the stuff I said producers are looking for the TV shows. Like you just give it a go. And ask for help, ask for advice.
So last question in this section, I always guess the answer to this one, Gianni. I mean, the answer is obviously going to be yes for this. Have you ever been recognised out in the street for FPL? And I'm guessing the answer is definitely going to be yes. Have you got any interesting stories you could share or that?
Oh,
the answer.
I'm trying to think of
the answer is yes.
Stories.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, but it's happens a lot more outside of England.
Really?
In England, you don't get it. I don't get it much at all. Like in England, I've had it a couple of times. Like I can, not much in England. It's great. Like I can go to Asda on a Sunday morning with my daughter, and it's funny. Like I'll have someone give me a double take and then tweet, be like, "Did I just see Gianni in Asda in Corby?" And it's like, yeah, it was me. Like I think that's quite sweet and quite nice. Like I like that. I'm sure if you're a celebrity and you're getting spotted loads, it must be horrendous that you can't go shopping on a Sunday morning. But for me, because it's so irregular, it's like, oh, that's quite nice that someone can have that can see you and thank you and be surprised by you. But overseas, because of the fantasy show going to 150 plus channels live for all the years it did, and it still does, I know it's watched in beIN Sport, for example, I mentioned earlier, or Star Sports in India, or Star Sports South Africa, I can't remember. Big channels, big sport channels. Everyone watches the Premier League. If you want to watch the Premier League in Dubai or in South Africa or in India, you watch that channel and you have it on a lot. Therefore, they see the fantasy show all the time and they might not even play FPL, but it will be on in a nightclub in Dubai because that's the channel that they'll keep on, just like we have Sky Sports News on in our pubs. So when I went to Qatar for the Football World Cup, and I was going to quite a few games, to be fair, so it was a football audience, but I just going into games and coming out of games, it happened. I got asked a lot for stuff. Like I remember being with Jules Breach and someone asking for a photo with me and not her, and we were going to a game in the car, and they asked Jules to take the photo, I think, or something that. I remember we laughed about it.
No offense, mate, but if I bump into you and Jules Breach, I want my photo with Jules.
Like, don't get me wrong. I took a lot of photos of Jules with people on that trip, but it was nice. The one guy to come over to us and be like, "Oh, you're Gianni from the fantasy show," and it's like, and I didn't say like, "Oh, this is Jules Breach here," but yeah, being in Qatar was probably because of the football audience, but also football crazy country, big Premier League country in terms of fan base, and yeah, that was. There was a lot of being stopped there, which was great. I liked it. I thought it was fun. Like it's not like, don't get me wrong, it's holiday in Italy and no one's going to recognise me, you know.
Okay. Right, so let's move on to the second part of the interview where we talk about FPL mental health. Just a reminder, if you're still listening up to this point, please like to help get the video out there, get people to see it. Please subscribe to help me get the channel up to 1,000 subscribers. Thanks so much if you do this. Okay, so I asked this question usually in two parts, Gianni.
Yeah.
Has FPL ever had an effect on your mood and mental health? And the reason I ask it in two parts is, firstly, if you just take being a player, taking the whole content creation side out of it, and then secondly, as a content creator, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Before making any content, none whatsoever. Like I was playing for mini league success. Yes, I had money on it with the boys, but it was okay. Maybe I'm a bit annoyed if my captain blanks, but when I say annoyed, it lasts 2 seconds. It's not even lasting 2 minutes, right? It's just a game of fun that I played as a hobby. As soon as I started making content, I cared about my team and I cared about my rank, and I realized people were watching things like rank, right? People were judging you on your rank. So I guess it then mattered, and I would certainly get annoyed with bad decisions and stuff that had gone wrong. Would it impact my mental health badly? At times, maybe I'd be a little bit moody in the afternoon on a Sunday because my players had blanked, and I'd be moody to be around and be like, pull yourself together. My wife would be a bit like, okay, like, are you sure you want to do this as a job if it's going to be getting you like stressed and stuff?
Right, is she into FPL? Like, does she get it sort of thing?
No, not really. She gets it. She's had a team a couple of seasons. Didn't play last year, but she's been in a mini league with a couple of like family and friends. We had one, so she got it and she was keen to give it a go, but not really into it and doesn't watch football. So yeah, it was like she would call me out and be like, okay, like if that's going to impact your mood negatively, is that a direction you want to go? Is you're starting to make more content and starting to build maybe an FPL career? Because at the time I wouldn't have been full time. So I remember sort of questioning it and being like, yeah, if it's a game that, if it's going to be like central to my life, do I want to consider how I'm playing, and do I want to consider how I need to react to bad things that maybe happen in the game? And I think I struggled a little bit with that. I think I struggled to kind of go, no, I can't shake it. I am in a mood because I am in a mood because Salah's banged and I've bet against him, which I did a lot last year. It didn't work out. And this was going back maybe 4 or 5 years as I started to make more and more content. But genuinely, the reason I stopped caring about things like rank and wouldn't let it get to me was the birth of my daughter. It changed everything. Like, not to make this chat, I guess, too deep, and I've never really spoken about it publicly, but we've had like quite a lot of trauma around like conceiving, and it was a really big like part of my life to be a dad, and we had stuff like multiple miscarriages leading up when I was starting to make content. I remember you could see me pausing because I was thinking that like, this is a story I should tell. But I remember going to a fantasy show to speak about like being on TV and stuff. I remember driving to a show in London, and I was literally 5 minutes from the studio, and Cam, my wife, calling me to be like, "Oh, it's happened again."
Oh, bloody hell.
And I remember going on air an hour later. No, probably an hour and a half later, because you get there an hour early, you do makeup and all that stuff. And I remember going on air and being like, completely no one would have known. Like, no one there knew. I didn't say anything. I'd clearly been like upset in the car, but no one would have known by the time I arrived. And I'd gone in, I'd done the show, and I felt completely numb. And I remember coming out and being like proper exhausted because I put on this show for half an hour to talk about FPL and clear my head and stuff. But I guess that's one thing I'm quite good at, which isn't great for my personality. I can just go put a bit of a front on and make out things are fine when they're not. And seeing as this is an FPL mental health discussion, I feel like it's probably good to do or good to mention, because I think there's probably a lot of guys or people out there that probably don't talk about their emotions and can just cover it. Now, I'm quite an emotive guy, and I do wear my heart on my sleeve, and I probably do discuss things, but just realizing how easy it is to cover up bad news like that, it was slightly alarming for me. I was like, oh God, I hate the fact that I can do that. And do I do that with FPL to my wife? And is it having a negative impact on my mental health? Blah, blah, blah. We're going on a tangent. But my point was, when Gaia was finally born and we had at the time 7 miscarriages over the last 3-4 years, I realized that actually, I remember getting pissed off that like I'd say a bad Sunday because my players didn't deliver, and being like, oh my God, like how can you be pissed off over that when like you've just had some really bad news that your wife's miscarried again? Like, put things into perspective. That really matters. This doesn't matter at all. And because of that journey then around having Gaia and going through IVF and Gaia then being born, it was like, whoa, like this is everything, and this is where my focus is. And I felt like I was doing Gaia and Cam a disservice every Saturday or Sunday. Sunday's Sunday's the day in FPL.
Yeah, I know what you mean, mate.
It's when the big points come in, and often your captain play. And when you're watching the live games, often it's a double header I always would watch. I'd be like, if I'm in a foul mood for them, like my world, my everything, the child I've cared so much about being able to have, if I can't be on form for them on a Sunday, then what's the point? Like, then I need to stop playing this game. So I gave myself this sort of ultimatum in my head. I never spoke about this. It was, I'll either quit FPL if it's going to impact my mental health, or I'll enjoy FPL for what it is, not take it so seriously that it impacts me, and be able to have wholesome days with my family. And I thought I had to test that, right? So Guy is then born, and I'm testing it, and I'm pleased to say until probably this season, and Guy is 3 now, I've been able to completely take like the stress of FPL and the mental health issues of FPL, of having bad game weeks or bad seasons or negative comments or whatever. Until this season, I've been completely able to go, doesn't bother me. Like, I'm fine having a bad season. It's just the game. And I keep being able to go, I've always, since Guy's been born, and maybe even when Cam was pregnant in the season, I think she was heavily pregnant. We knew everything was going to be fine. I think I was able just to go, yeah, that's all that matters. We're about to have a baby. Like, my wife's 6 months pregnant. That's all I cared about. Therefore, FPL was just a game, and it took the pressure off FPL. I genuinely didn't care if my captain blanked. Like, yeah, a bit annoying. It's my job, and I need to be all right at this game to get work. But I didn't really care. Like that, it was so secondary.
Yeah, I mean, obviously sorry to hear about all the things that you've been through, but great you're a father now. I mean, I did have Ray Qureshi, I'm mispronouncing.
Oh, yeah.
He came on one of the first interviews I did, and he had a similar experience and has quit FPL because it was winding him up so much. So, like, there is. I don't think there's any. If it really is affecting your life that much, I don't think there is any shame for stepping away. He still plays Telegraph, but he finds that a lot less.
I love that. I love Ray.
Still finds that a lot less stressful. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I think, and look, for me, it was putting things into perspective, and it was this thing around trauma of having a baby and then it happening. I'm not for 1 minute saying if you're out there and you're playing FPL and you're in a mood for your family on a Sunday, you should question it. That was just my thing. And for other people now have another thing. Yeah. And we spoke about Mark earlier. Like, Mark stepped away from FPL for a season when he was doing content on the show because it became too much. And I remember him saying to me, it wasn't fair on Pip, his wife, because he was in a bad mood for her, and they had precious time together at weekends, and he was in a foul mood. So whatever your thing is, you should question it. But at the same time, FPL has been the be all and end all for probably 7, 8, 9 years early on. So, and it's so important to me, and it's a game I know and love, and it does matter, and it does to so many people in different ways. So if it is your everything, there's also nothing wrong with that. Just for me, until this season, I was able to go, actually, it's just a game. But for some, of course, it's more than a game. And I think for this season, at times it's felt that I've not been able to do that well. I've probably failed at times of going, I'm going to be in a good mood for my family on a Sunday, because I've been moody because I've had a rubbish season, and I failed with my mission, I think, last season.
So I know you said beforehand that I could prompt you a little bit on this. So just to return to the question a bit, but to think about what we were talking about before we started recording, is there anything specific about being a content creator, perhaps being on X, for example, that has affected your mood or mental health during your content creation journey?
Yeah, without doubt. Like, X has not been good for my mental health. It's always been fine with X, and I've always had everyone gets a bit of criticism. That's fine. Like, I don't mind negative comments. And everyone's entitled to their opinion too. And X is a platform where you can put your point of opinion across, and it's a social media platform I've spent a lot of time on over the years, I guess.
That's gone downhill a lot recently, hasn't it?
I've definitely not spent a huge amount of time on it in the last 6 months. But because when you're having a bad season, you'll always get more negative comments. And I don't mind a few isolated ones or even a lot of negative comments if I think it's fair. I think I've just felt in the last season, and it's negatively impacted my mood, that there's been a bit of a flurry over maybe just content creators in general, but at times I'm used as the face of content creators doing badly. If my rank's bad, like if I'm having a good season, I'm probably not that face and someone else is. And I think at times there's been other content creators that have probably been called out more heavily than I have because they were more controversial, probably because they had a bad season and for nothing else. Now I've had a terrible season, and I question if that's the only reason why there's perhaps at times it's felt like could be a bit of a witch hunt. But I also know that I have a really privileged position that I get to go on TV and talk about the game that so many on X know and love. And if you're on X and you're spending a lot of time on X, you're probably a real FPL enthusiast. And if you're out there and you're really good at the game and you've got an X account, but maybe you've thought about setting up a YouTube channel, or you've tried writing articles in the past, or you've always thought it'd be cool to be on TV, and you don't have those same opportunities, but you go, why is he getting those opportunities? Why is he getting those opportunities and I'm not? I think there is sometimes a point where people go, that's a bit that's a bit unfair. He's a fraud or whatever. I really dislike the fact that people can judge me straight away from a rank or listen to someone that perhaps isn't giving you all the information. There's been I've seen a few comments. I've had this over the years. I've never finished in the top 10K, and I've never made any I've never pretended to have had amazing ranks. What I have had is 8 finishes in the top 50K. I've probably had, from those 8 finishes, I've probably been one big decision away from top 10K a few times, right? One captaincy call or one bad whatever. So,
quite interrupt 1 minute, John. Because there are a lot. I know there are a lot of people who don't get so much stick about the ranks. So, for example, I know because I've had all 3 of them on the channel. James from Planet FPL has never had a top 10K finish. And neither of the above average FPL lads, or at least they hadn't until the last season. But you don't see them. Yeah. You don't see that called out. Do you know what I mean? It's
and 14 seasons. I think I've been playing. I'm not good at remembering ranks and stuff, but from 14 seasons, I think I'm right in saying I've only finished outside the top 100K 3 times. Like, in terms of being consistently good, not elite, I know that's a really good rank history. I know it's really good for Sky. I know it's really good for the Premier League. I know many casual managers or even good managers would see overall, but many won't look at that. And Twitter's only about the short characters you see in the tweet. People will just look at the headline, and if the headline is no top 10K finishes, automatically no one goes, oh, he's got 8 in the top 50K. They'll go, what a fraud, he's on Sky. And the big thing that James from Planet FPL or the guys from Above Average, they're allowed it because they're not on Sky being called an expert. They're allowed it because they're not on the Premier League being called an expert.
That's a good point.
I'm not given that grace. And I'm also not given that grace because I come across as quite confident, and that can be mistaken for arrogance. I'm also not given that grace because I have commercial partnerships and I'm clearly making money from FPL. I'm also not given that grace because I'm half Italian and bang on about being Italian and the Italian national team beating England, and people don't like that. I lose followers every time there's a bloody World Cup or Euros because I tweet about the team I support.
You're quite good looking as well, mate, which personally pisses me off a bit.
People definitely judge from appearance. I mean, I'm very grey and old, so I don't know if I am. But yeah,
you're looking better than me, mate.
People judge a book by its cover, right? We all do it. I'm probably guilty of the same. And I think when people see me, they can think very easily arrogant, smug, and especially if they see a big stat or a headline, not very good at FPL, which gives them so much hatred. And I do really sympathise. I genuinely sympathise with people that feel that hatred towards me or anyone. I don't really hate anyone. Like, I dislike things, But to have hatred for someone you've never met, wow. Like that is, and hatred for someone that I don't think's ever said anything controversial, right? You can hate Donald Trump because of, I've never met Donald Trump, I can hate him for what he stands for or whoever.
Yeah.
When I see people hating me, it gets me. It gets me, especially when they're relentless with it and they're unfair in their judgment. But I'm there to be shot at, and I'm only there to be shot at because I have loads of cool stuff going on. And if I have loads of cool stuff going on, I feel like I can't complain. So it is what it is. Twitter can affect me a bit in answer to your original question. And I've managed that quite well. I'm starting to manage that quite well, I think. I have several accounts that I blocked a long time ago that I have no interest in ever looking at their channel. I know when they may have posted because I'll have a flurry of comments, and I'll have a flurry of comments about expert status or something like that. And if I have a flurry of comments over, I'm like, oh, okay, that must mean someone might be tweeting, or some people might be tweeting about me, or something's been said somewhere. But I completely don't care about those individuals. I do think I'm seeing it more and more on X. And with that in mind, I don't think it's a platform I want to spend time on. I've definitely spent spending less time on it. I do have Blue Sky. I set up an account when everyone else did. My problem with Blue Sky was that the interactions in terms of chatting to people I know and love,
very quiet.
Because I liked X for those interactions, they weren't there. And I remember when it launched, I was on holiday and I got an account and I did have quite some nice interactions, but over time they all migrated back. I remember Ben Crellin at the time. I think he tweeted saying like, all my posts are going to be on Blue Sky from now. And I was like, this is great. And Ben got loads of followers. I was like, if Ben's there, everyone's going to go. But even Ben has come back and yeah, it's unfortunate.
I suppose if only like 25% move over, even if it's 50% like happened, you've still got to come back for the other 50%. It's almost like you want it all to be in one place, even if that place is owned by the most toxic, well, alongside Donald Trump, the most toxic man in the world, in Elon Musk. So yeah,
I think Twitter's quite good for it, right? In terms of engagements for people that say things that are either mean or controversial. That people see that they get a reaction, they get likes, and then it's very easy just to continue going down that theme, which is so unfortunate and so unfair on in this instance or examples we might be talking about on me or other content creators. Like people just, what really bugs me though is just the fair trial bit. I just would love the people that post it, they're beyond the point of help, right? I'm not asking for them to give fair trial. No. Like they are unfortunate, sad, and never, the whole expression leopard never changed its spots. Well, probably not, right? You can
FPL Nightmare might have used different words, but
oh really? Okay, yeah. You can take the horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? So like I'm not asking for fair trial from them. Unfortunately, they're not changing. What I'm asking for, I guess, is fair trial from people that maybe read tweets or judge. But again, in the fast scrolling landscape of Twitter, people aren't there and going to go and do due diligence or research. They're going to believe what they're told. So whether it's a quote that's been misinterpreted or a stat or a number around rank or referring to themselves as experts, we didn't really discuss that earlier, but I've never once asked to be called an expert. I've never called myself an expert. And I know there's a lot of expert hate out there. Unfortunately, it's a marketing term that Sky and the Premier League use to describe me and others. And if I want to work with them, then I've got to like it or lump it. I don't hate it enough for it to go, you can't use it. And if I said that, maybe I don't get the same opportunities. So sure, you can use it, but I've never called it myself. And I've seen people share things like articles I've written where it says, buy Salah this weekend. Trust me, I'm an expert. I'm like, dude, I get paid to write the article. The headline or the SEO terms that are put in there ain't written by me. They're written by someone way above my pay grade. So yeah, I can confidently go on record and say I've seen people even share thumbnails have been like the life of an expert with a picture of me on. I'm like, dude, that's not my channel. Like I didn't make that thumbnail. That's not my channel. Like again, paid to go and do that. If they want to use a term expert, that's their thing, not mine.
I'd recommend, I don't know if you've seen this one, but a few years ago now, Games from Planet FPL did a whole pod on what's an expert in FPL, which was a great listen. Yeah. It was a great listen. So I recommend anyone go and listen to that. So last question in this section, Gianni. What what advice would you give to anyone who may be struggling with, well, not this season because we're off season, but it struggles in general with mood or mental health as a result of FPL?
Genuinely, if it gets you and you're not a content creator, I would strongly advise you to get off Twitter. Don't go on Twitter. Look, you're not going to get hate because you might not be a content creator. I'm not even referring to the hate people I get on Twitter. Get off Twitter because it's full of people posting their really good scores all the time.
Yeah, they never post a bad score, do they?
Yeah, exactly. Very few do, right? And even if you do, you don't remember the bad. You remember all those that are beating you. So it's not good for someone's mental health if they care too much about FPL and they care about their rank and they don't want to see loads of people beating them. Just concentrate on your mini league and your mates and try and treat it for what it is, which is a game. Now, that's not saying it's a game that you can't care about and be anxious about and really like, but I think getting off Twitter is often a good start for those that maybe do suffer with mental health issues around the game. Like maybe just get off Twitter at weekends. That's another, that's when everyone's posting about and celebrating their stuff. Now, look, don't get me wrong. I'll post my good ranks. I'll post when my differential bangs a brace and it will be all capital letters, goal, whatever. But if that's going to bug you, and that does bug a lot of people, I quite like seeing people celebrate their wins, but that's not for everyone. Don't just leave the platform.
Good advice. So we'll move on to sort of the last section of the interview where generally I ask, how's your FPL season going? So I'm going to do something a little bit different here. So for transparency,
thank God I didn't come on last year.
When did you finish last year?
500. I don't know. 550k or 560 something. I don't even know my team ID from last year. I'm not good at remembering numbers and ranks.
You've repressed it now.
I remember being at the point of about, I don't know, 300k with a few weeks to go, or maybe even 300k with a month or 6 weeks to go, and being like, again, crap at numbers and dates, and being like, I ain't gonna have a great rank. Like I'm not now. It's impossible for me to finish in the top 10k, which was my aim, or 50k, which would have been awesome. So it was either go really different or maybe have a chance of 100k finish. Like to me, finishing 120k or 520k was neither here nor there. Like, yeah, there's 400k difference, but it really didn't bother me if I finished at 520 or 120. It was still going to be a rubbish season for me and what I was playing for. So I was like, well, play different. So I committed to a chip strategy that went against the chip strategy that pretty much 99% of people on, say, Twitter would have used last season. I didn't free hit in that week when everyone free hit and they all got 150 points. And I didn't wildcard when everyone wildcarded, and I didn't triple captain when everyone triple cap. Like, I just went proper, I'm going to go I'm going to go so different that I actually have a chance of that top 10k finish from my rubbish season, because it's so different that I'm betting against the obvious. If everything falls into place, I've got a chance. Or I'm going to finish at 500k. And I finished at 500k. I even sold Salah on the final day for Saka, I think. No, or maybe I kept Salah, but I bought in Saka and captained him. He got 1 point. He didn't even start. But I made decisions that I knew weren't great for overall history. But I made decisions to go, I'm playing loose because I know I'm not going to have a season I'm happy with either way. With hindsight, knowing there's people that will watch me with a fine tooth comb, having that 120k finish probably means I wouldn't get loads of stick. But unfortunately, I really do put two fingers up to those sorts of comments. Like, there's no way in a month of Sundays I'm changing the way I play my game because of a comment. Like, not a chance. In fact, the comments, if anything, make me want to put two fingers up to you and go the other way. Like, it's just not how I play. And unfortunately, I know those comments get to other content creators. And I know there's a lot of content creators out there that never used to play safe that now play really safe because eyes are on them. And I completely understand why you do it. And I completely get it, because it's tough, but that's not in my nature. I'll go and support Chelsea, not Man United, even though they're not winning, because I want to do things differently. It's just, I've always been like that, and it's not my default sitting at. I don't even want to be different for different sake. I'm just not that way inclined. I just like to do things.
I had a very similar season. I was at 500,000 at game week 30, and my goal was always the top 100,000. And it did work, and I was going up and up and up. But I got to 103,000 by the end of the season. I was like 2 points off. It was so frustrating.
And were you template chip strat? The chip strategy everyone was on, was that
pretty much?
Yeah, which worked, right? everyone that was on that had big gains. They had big greens because they all bought the similar players, the Palace players, whatever. Munoz kept scoring, Eze kept scoring. And they all had that big free hit week, which was, I think, huge for them. Well, it was a free hit where every free hit suggestion just massively banged. I managed to cover, I don't know, 6-7 of them. But yeah, my point was that it was, I think I play, I can honestly say, and I'm proud of this, I play my own game, and I'm not so sure many do, certainly that have a lot of eyes on their team, because it's really hard to. It's really hard to play your own game when so many judge your decisions. It's so much easier.
I do notice a lot of the content creators, and I think a lot of it's to do with content creators using XG more and more, and review kind of feeds off of that as well. There is kind of a homogeneity of homogeneity, is that the word I'm looking for, between a lot of teams.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you.
I mean, they're all the same. Familiarity.
Basically, yeah.
There's a very strong template every season now, and you're right. It's probably led by things like XG and review. And your favorite content creators making decisions, and then people copy. Like, I know if Let's Talk FPL is buying a player, a lot more other managers are buying that player. And therefore there'll be a price rise, and therefore if I don't own that player, I'm backing against probably the obvious each time. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Fortunately, I think maybe it's easier for me because I've never been on FPL review. I don't have an account or pay for it, or I've never used it, or I don't know, is it free, or I've never run a thing.
2 versions. There's a free version. I'm a member. I'm a big fan. A lot of my
I think it's awesome for those people that want to use it. It's just it's not been something covered. I avoid all FPL tools and advice because I know it will affect me eventually. If I listen to FPL podcasts, if I like the guys that do Black Box, I love Mark so much, and every now and then I'll listen to a Mark and Az on Black Box. Gutted Mark can't do it next season, but I know if I watch that, it will influence my decisions, and then my stuff's not. Then my decisions aren't authentic, but also the content I make. Before I know it, I'll be regurgitating a stat that Az has just said because it's a really good stat. So yes, I'm on Twitter and I see all that stuff, but I try and not use. Well, I don't use any third party. I mean, I'm on the Scout members area, like fine. But I don't read the in-depth Scout articles because I know a lot of people go that way. I don't go on review. I try not to watch any FPL content, even though there's awesome content.
I'm gonna cut football. I'm gonna cut in, mate. So I think we've got about 10 minutes. Got about another 10 minutes.
We got 15. Yeah,
15 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions, and then I'm gonna round up. I'm gonna give a very tiny, like 1 minute channel update at the end of this because it's probably going to be the last thing coming out. So I was just going to say, obviously, that we're recording this when the fixtures come out, but the game hasn't been launched, so we obviously don't know the prices and that. What have you read? Is there any general trends you've read into the fixtures? I mean, what do you reckon might? I'm just talking generally, but so I did a thing on Triggerlips's channel where we sort of think, there's going to probably be. I can't remember. I mean, we were trying to figure out where the players would come from, and we really struggled because the fixtures are so. There's no one with outstanding fixtures. Just is there any general trends you see, and what do you roughly think the game week 1 template might look like?
Yeah, it was great that I think it was great for the fixtures to see teams like Arsenal and Newcastle, like popular FPL teams, did well last season, right at the bottom of the ticker. Like that means we got big decisions to make, like Arsenal defender or Isak or whatever.
Sunderland at the top.
Sunderland at the top, but also very high from memory. And I put together a first draft when it came out, but I've not looked at it since. From memory, like Villa were high. Chelsea were high and Forest were high.
Yeah.
Now, straight away, there are 3 teams that got European football, right? There are 3 teams that are at the top third of the Premier League, and they will be again, maybe not Forest, but with good FPL options too, all down those teams. So I think there will be Chelsea, Villa, and Forest representation.
The prices won't go up too much, you wouldn't have thought, would you?
No, like Palmer's going to stay the same-ish. Delap's going to be a legit option, still be cheap. Watkins isn't going to have a massive price rise, but maybe depending on where Rashford goes or if they buy a striker, maybe isn't first choice. There's a decision to be made there. We know Emery doesn't fully trust him in all the big games. I would be wary on Watkins, knowing we saw benchings for him in some big games, including, I think, PSG in the Champions League. Forest defence, everyone's going to see their number from last year and go, they were brilliant.
But it is worth noting. 5 million for them?
Yeah, you might get a 5.5 from a Milenkovic or I don't know. You may, but I don't think they'll all be 5.5. So you'll get a starting Forest defender definitely at 5. Surely 1. They're not going to price all 4 at 5.5. But it's worth noting they're going to have European football midweek fixtures, and now teams know how they play, and it hasn't got the shock factor that it had on season 1 of Nuno. And also, we know at the end of last season, their numbers weren't as good defensively, and you've got to take maybe some of that as well, and they overperformed. So I think there will be a lot of casuals that maybe go double Forest defence, and there'll be a lot of engaged managers that go either no Forest defence or 1. That could be an interesting split. Again, no casuals will go Arsenal because of the fixtures, but there'll be engaged managers that go, it doesn't matter who they play, they still keep clean sheets. So I'm interested to see where the template forms. And if Palmer's part of it, again, he needs pre-season goals, or if people feel Delap can cover Palmer.
I'm going to bring you up on what you said in your video, 9.5 million for Palmer, you predict. I reckon that's too cheap, mate.
A lot think 10. I think FPL team maybe had him down as 10, and I edited it to 9.5. It will be it'll be one or the other. It won't be any more. It can't be 10.5.
What was he last year?
And he came in at 10, did he?
I can't remember. Maybe he was 10.5. I can't remember last year.
I'm the worst person to ask.
It could have even been
me in numbers.
It could have even been 11.
No, he didn't. No, it wasn't 11. Let me check. I'm looking now. He started at 10.5.
10.5.
He did go up as high as 11.4. I remember last year it was like Saka, Foden, and Palmer were maybe Foden and Saka were like 9.5 or 10 and Palmer or 10.5. Yeah, they're all similar price, but I don't know. He can't go up. He can't. I think because of his end of season form, he could go down. I think we could get 9.5, but probably 10. You're right.
The game will be out by the time this comes out. Yeah. People will be laughing at us. What do you reckon on the Salah Haaland? Both one and the other?
It's going to be the same discussion as last season. Is it X or Y or both? And I think it will be a lot on Salah and not Haaland. I think Haaland's going to be. I think I have Haaland at something like 13.5. He obviously started last year at 15, which was huge. What FPL did with that 15 million price point was they showed us they're willing to go there. Now, if they're not willing to go there for Mo Salah, having got a record-breaking season, playing for the team that had all the best data, both underlying and actual, Salah's going to be 15 for me. Like, I reckon they can go there. So he
is old. He is getting older, though. I reckon that might be the difference between him and Haaland. I don't think we would expect him to necessarily.
He's shown no signs of slowing down, though. When he shows signs of slowing down, we can use age as a thing. I don't think we can use age as a thing until we see the signs of it.
Well,
don't know. So what do you think he comes in at?
14.5? I think 14.
Whoa, really?
To make it competitive. And tell me how stupid we are in the comments. Me thinking 14 and Gianni 9.5 for Palmer. Yeah, I just think because... But then again, they did boost Haaland's price up, even though his second season wasn't as good as his first season. So
yeah, they showed us they'll go there. Like they went, 22 goals, 3 assists. The year before he had 27 and 8. And they still went to 15 million. Like Salah's got a huge record there now. I think I'm going to go Haaland like 13.5, back down to it, and Salah 15.
I think that's
which begs the question: if Florian Wirtz is 9.5, let's say, and Salah is 14, Salah is 15, and there's 5.5 million between them, that's going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it is.
Which can you go without Mo and cover some of those points with a elite output merchant in Wirtz? Maybe you can. I don't know.
I had a look at his.
I'm sure I'll be going Salah though. I just think I think Liverpool were too good to not own their talisman.
I think he had 11, 12 goals and 11 or 12 assists Wirtz last season, something like that, which I guess would be amazing for 9.5 million if he could replicate that, wouldn't it be? So I've got 2 more questions, mate. This is a new one. What's the most random reason you've ever picked a player for your FPL team?
Oh God, going way back when, loads would be. I'd pick a player. Let's say I'm watching a game with the boys. I'd make sure I pick and captain a player of a game. I'm going to the pub on a Sunday afternoon. I'd go and captain or pick a player that was like I'm going to watch. So I'd make my transfer on a player that I knew was in action. I'd be like, I'm watching Newcastle and I don't own Alan Shearer. I'm going to buy him and captain him. Alan Shearer's probably was done by the time I played. I can't remember.
Yeah,
I remember Odin Wingy when he was at West Brom. I had a very good spell with Odemwingie. I was even like captain Odemwingie at West Brom, and I remember him delivering. I think I feel like I only remember that because I wrote about it maybe in the book. It was an example from the year before. But Odemwingie at West Brom, I was bringing him in and captaining him quite nicely at 5 million. I was quite happy with that.
Yeah, someone's gonna fire that back to me at some point in the. I'm gonna have to think.
What's yours?
I don't know. I haven't thought. I'm gonna have to put some thought about that. Maybe I will address that one on the next one. So, last question, mate. It's the most generic question you could be asked. I've actually got this question is written out from the first ever interview I've done, but with a massive FPL expert, however you want to say it. What general advice? What general advice would you give, mate, for someone who wants to just generally improve as an FPL player?
Oh God, I'm the wrong person to ask. I finished 550k. I don't know. I genuinely don't think I'm the best person to. I feel like I've been playing FPL too long to give general advice well, because the game has changed. And last season, the biggest mistake I made was I didn't adapt to the 5 transfer rule well at all.
Yeah, I didn't.
I didn't adapt to that well at all. I was making transfers most weeks still. I think I probably rolled up to 3 transfers once, like loads rolled up to 4 and 5. And with that, the changes you can make, I played too aggressive and I took too many hits. I think patience would be a big advice tip I would give. Yeah. I'm going to try and be more patient next year. I'm going to try and be slightly less aggressive. I don't know. I like backing against the obvious, and I don't want to stop doing that. But I commit FPL suicide last year when I didn't buy Mo Salah and kept Haaland and kept captain Haaland and didn't even own Salah as a backup. If you're going to go against the big player, still own them. That would be one bit of advice I give. Like when you want to back against the obvious with captaincy, still own the player. Don't not buy Mo Salah because you're capping Haaland. Like find a way of owning both and still captain Haaland, even if it's wrong. But own Mo. That was my suicide last year, I think. It'd be to play your own game always. The amount of times people comment, go, "Oh no, I bought that player in because Let's Look FPL told me to, and he didn't do well." And then you want to blame your favorite content creator. It's like, dude. Just because he did it, you don't have to copy. Like, play your own game. Use content creators for advice and for tips, but don't let them make your transfers. Personally, I wouldn't let anything or anyone make your transfers. Like, I think FPL Review, we discussed, it's a great resource a lot of people use. Don't let it make your transfers. Like, don't let it completely decide what you do. Use it as part of your decision-making process. Use that information, and information is rich in FPL. Get as much of it as you can, but make your own decisions with transfers.
Yeah,
and captaincy. I'm terrible at captaincy. My record over the history of me playing FPL is terrible with captaincy. So don't ever listen to me with the armband. That'd be another bit of advice.
I do think some of the general bits of advice can really help, like if you bear them in mind. Do you know what I mean? Rather than the very specific, nuanced advice, like when specifically should you use your wild card. Sometimes I think, particularly patience, those bits of advice, sage bits of advice, can be the best bits of advice you can get, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much, Gianni, for coming on. I'm just going to plug a couple of things. So this season, this may come out before the first FPL podcast or after, I'm not sure. So I'm starting a new preview stream called the FPL podcast, where I'm going to basically have 6 rotating guests, hopefully, which will be Triggerlips, Stevo, Roberto, FPL Yellow Army, D Unit. I don't know if you've seen him, Gianni. Very entertaining Aussie lad. Who else are there? Triggerlips, Stevo, Andrew, FPL Nightmare, and myself. And we're going to try. So a couple of those will be joining me every week, and then we're going to try and get a different guest for the community on next week. And we were talking beforehand, Gianni. You said hopefully you'd be up for coming on one week.
Definitely up for it. I would love to come on a week where. Obviously, you and Andrew or Stevo were on. Like,
I'll try and get them both.
Two of those names you just mentioned. Like, Stevo is honestly what I've listened to his podcasts. Like, he's such good value and such a nice guy. I've met him. I think only the once, but I love Stevo, and Andrew is an absolute legend and an awesome addition to the FPL community as I know it, which is sort of Twitter and YouTube. So. Man, the great lineup, great concept. I've seen many of your lives before. I think it was Andrew that probably got me watching them. I look forward to being one of the viewers. And will it be live?
Yeah, That's going to be live, yeah. And I'm also going to do something called the FPL lock-in, which is basically going to be like a reaction stream. That's probably just going to be me over the weekend. So I just thought I'd plug them when the game starts. But Gianni, thanks so much for coming on. Anything you wanted to say before we finish?
No, just thank you, really, mate. Like it's a cool concept, but you know, I don't know if my story or my journey is interesting enough.
I've really enjoyed the conversation
to watch or listen for the length of time. Hopefully, some have. I hope I didn't go too deep on this chat, but
you can't.
My big advice out there is to my final note, I guess, would be games have to be fun. Games have to be fun. Like, it's a game, and games have to be fun. If FPL is a game to you, then make sure it's an enjoyable experience. Now, as I said, it's always been one for me until maybe at times last season where I wasn't able to go, damn, it is just a game. And it can mean a lot to you, and that's absolutely fine. It's been my world for a very long time at times in my life. But if you're not enjoying FPL, and especially if you're not making content and it doesn't depend on your income and your livelihood and your whatever, putting food on the table, take a break. You don't have to play it every year. You don't have to play it every game. You don't have to play it every week. Or stop watching content or get off Twitter. Because there's a common theme with your interviews with the mental health sort of strand I want to address. If FPL gets you too much, you have to try and recognize it. And recognizing it is the first step. But once it's been recognized, think about how you make changes. Now, hopefully, many watching will go, it's not a big enough thing for me to need to make changes. Or hopefully some go, I make a small tweak. I only go on Twitter on Mondays and Tuesdays, or I only watch content on these days, or I now make whatever decisions, and it's a better experience. I think games have to be fun, and we have to remember that.
Great way to end. So thank you so much for joining me. I finally figured out how to use end screens. So if you
nice.
Click on Gianni's face, over his face now, please, to subscribe. It would be much appreciated. There should be a couple of interviews, if you want to check out more, floating over me. Thanks so much again, Gianni, and I will see you all soon.